Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a stack of sources you sent over reports on some really incredible historical and archaeological finds.
That's right. We're going to dig into them. Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed on some fascinating new discoveries.
Yeah, our goal is really just to unpack these headlines, figure out what they're telling us about, people and places from way back.
And why they still matter, why these things capture our imagination today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've got quite a journey lined up. We're going from these really ancient burials in France over to Egypt for some, well, monumental finds.
Literally monumental. Yeah.
Right. And then we'll look at how tech helps us see faces from the past and maybe even check out a secret underground cave. Sounds pretty cool.
It does. So where should we start?
Okay, let's kick off in France. This story is out of Bordeaux,
Mm.
reported by the International Business Time. And it actually links back to a discovery from the 70s, believe it or not.
Right, but there's new analysis shedding light on it now.
Yeah, it's about this burial of a man from, get this, 7,000 years ago, found in southern France. Now, the skeleton itself was damaged, which, isn't too surprising after that long.
Mm-hmm. Time takes its toll. But what is surprising, what the archaeologists are calling exceptional, is how well his clothing and ornaments survived.
That's the amazing part. Finding organic stuff like fabric from that period is just incredibly rare.
It really is. So what exactly did they find on him?
What they think it was a jacket. The tunic didn't make it, but this jacket was embroidered. And it had 158 shells sewn onto it. Columbella rustica shells.
Wow, 158. Those are those little sea snail shells, right? Often quite colorful.
Yeah. And the analysis showed they weren't just like stuck on randomly. They were arranged in patterns. The conical shells pointed up or down in alternating pairs.
So real deliberate design work there. That shows intention.
Totally. And there's more. On top of the shells, they found 16 reindeer canine teeth sewn on as well.
Reindeer teeth. Okay, that's specific.
Right. And the chemical analysis, it confirmed the teeth were actually painted red.
Right. Painted red. So you've got shells, painted teeth, intricate patterns, all on this one garment from 7,000 years ago.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. What this tells us, the insight here, is that this level of personal expression, maybe status display, it was happening much earlier in prehistoric Europe than we might have thought. This isn't just basic clothing, it's a statement.
Yeah, it completely changes the picture you might have of life back then. That effort, that detail, it suggests this person was, well, significant somehow.
Absolutely. It forces you to consider the complexity of their society, their beliefs, maybe their hierarchy.
Okay, so from ancient fashion statements, let's pivot. Let's head over to Egypt, a place where, it feels like they're always finding something new, even after centuries of digging.
Yeah, Egypt never disappoints, does it?
Yeah.
Our source here is Aram Online, and it focuses on recent work near the Luxor Temple. And you're right, it seems incredible that they're still finding major stuff there, given excavations started back in the 1800s.
So what's the big find this time?
Well, the main highlight is a black granite statue of Amenhotep III, unearthed at his funerary temple. That's on Luxor's West Bank.
Amenhotep III, okay. And is it well preserved?
Oh, yeah. The archaeologists are raving about it, calling it a masterpiece, extremely well carved, perfectly polished, really top quality stuff.
Wow. And who does it show him as? Like older king, younger?
It depicts him as a young man, so the thinking is it was probably commissioned pretty early in his reign, which was a long and pretty prosperous one.
And what happens to a find like this now?
Well, the plan is conservation, reassembly. Similar to another big find of his from 2009, the goal is eventually public display.
Makes sense. But wasn't there more than just the one statue?
That's right. It wasn't just Amenhotep. The team also pulled up 66 parts of other statues.
66 parts. Of what?
Mostly representing the goddess Sekhmet, the lion-headed one.
Ah, Sekhmet. There are quite a few statues of her around, aren't there?
Tons, especially associated with Amenhotep III. And they found these pieces, the Sekhmet ones and the Amenhotep one, while they were actually looking for something else.
Oh, what were they looking for?
They were searching for the remains of a wall, a specific wall that separated the temple's Paris court from the hypostyle hall, that big room with all the columns.
So digging for a wall, find a pile of statues. Classic archaeology.
Pretty much. And the report mentioned they were found toppled over.
Any idea why?
Well, given the location and history, the most likely culprit is probably an earthquake at some point in the past. That often explains finding things knocked down like that.
So finding these isn't just more statues, is it? It's kind of a reminder that even these super famous, heavily studied
Still
sites.
have secrets, exactly. And sometimes you find them by accident while looking for something completely different. It highlights how dynamic the whole process is.
Definitely. And sticking with Egypt, but shifting to maybe a more enduring mystery, there's still buzz around Nefertiti, right? The great royal wife.
Ah, yes, Nefertiti. Always fascinating. This story takes us back, way back actually, to the 1880s, near the ancient city of Amarna.
Amarna, Akhenaten city.
That's the one. So back then, local residents discovered this tomb, a multi-chambered rock-cut tomb. It's known as Amarna 26. And even among other Amarna tombs, this one stood out. It was unusually large, impressive.
But, as often happens, time wasn't kind to it.
Sadly, no. It got hit hard over the millennia. Looters, weather, just general decay. A lot of the original artifacts were taken, and any fragile decoration that might have been there, no, it didn't survive well.
But some things did survive.
Yes, thankfully.
Yeah.
Enough important artifacts were left to give clues. Things like over 200 figurines, shabtis probably, an alabaster chest, and 2 big granite sarcophagi.
Okay, so based on those finds, who do they think the tomb belonged to?
Well, the consensus for a long time, based on inscriptions and context, has been that this tomb, sometimes called the Royal Tomb of Amarna, belonged to the pharaoh Akhenaten herself and his daughter Meriteten.
Akhenaten and his daughter. Okay. But where does Nefertiti come into this?
Ah, here's the twist. The tomb's design included a 3rd chamber, but this chamber was left unfinished.
Unfinished.
Yeah. And nobody knows for sure who that 3rd chamber was originally intended for. It's always been a blank spot in the plan.
Which naturally leads to speculation.
Exactly. Could that unfinished space have been meant for Akhenaten's famous wife, Nefertiti? It's a possibility that keeps archaeologists interested.
So it's this lingering question mark. No definitive proof, but the possibility is there.
Precisely. That uncertainty, the potential for maybe some future analysis or maybe another find somewhere else that connects back, keeps the mystery alive. It's that what if that makes archaeology so compelling, isn't it?
Absolutely. Okay, so we've gone from clothing to statues to tombs.
Hmm.
Let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about seeing the past, literally seeing it.
You mean facial reconstructions?
Yeah, how archaeology and forensic science team up to recreate images of people from history.
Right, using skeletal remains, scientific data. Expert can build a likeness, a face, for someone who lived centuries or even millennia ago.
It's kind of like a visual time machine, isn't it? It gives you this incredible glimpse based on actual research that just reading about them doesn't provide.
It definitely makes them feel more real, more human. And there are some pretty famous examples out there that you can actually see online or in museums. The sources mentioned a few.
Like who?
Well, there's a Celtic woman from about 1800 BC, a Mycenaean warrior from around 1500 BC.
Wow, going way back.
Yeah. And then maybe more familiar historical names, like King Tut, obviously, Robert the Bruce.
The Scottish king.
That's it. And King Richard III, the one they found under the car park.
Right. Seeing a potential face for these figures we only know from history books or, coins.
Yeah.
It's really striking.
It totally changes your perspective, doesn't it? Suddenly, it's not just a name and dates. It's a person you can almost picture. You start wondering about their life, their expressions.
Yeah, what they actually look like walking around. It's powerful stuff.
Okay.
From faces of the past, let's go to a place that's been hitting the headlines recently. This sort of top trending archaeological headline, a secret underground Templar cave.
Ah, yes, the Shropshire Caves. That story's been getting a lot of attention.
So it's in Shropshire in the UK.
Yeah.
And the reports suggest it might have been a ceremonial spot for followers of the Knights Templar, that secretive religious order.
Right. And the narrative, the popular story around it, is that it was maybe an underground safe haven for Templar leaders when things got dicey for them.
Which they certainly did, King Philip I of France especially.
Exactly. The Templars were this huge power, weren't they? A feared fighting force during the Crusades, but also major bankers, basically. They built up this massive international base.
And King Philip, he owed them a lot of money, right? And feared their power.
Precisely. So he was instrumental in dismantling the order in the early 14th century. So the idea of secret hideouts makes sense in that context.
So these caves in Shropshire, they were just lying there hidden.
Apparently they lay untouched, or at least largely unknown, for many years. When exactly they were carved, that's not definitively known.
So it's a bit mysterious.
Very much so. That's part of the appeal. Some people think the Knights Templar themselves carved them maybe 700 years ago. Or perhaps later followers used them.
But there are other theories too, right?
Yeah. The sources also mention another idea that's gained some traction more recently. Could the caves have been used by others, maybe druids or pagans, looking for a safe hidden spot to practice their own beliefs?
So it could be Templar, could be older, could be later groups. Lots of possibilities.
That's what makes sites like this so intriguing. The layers of mystery, the different potential uses over time. It just invites more questions and hopefully more investigation.
Okay, so quite a tour today. We've gone from this surprisingly fancy burial in France showing prehistoric style,
Yeah, pushing back our ideas of sophistication.
then through Egypt with those huge statue finds reminding us old sites still hold surprises, and that lingering Nefertiti tomb mystery.
Always compelling.
Then we looked into the reconstructed faces of historical figures, bringing them to life.
A very direct connection to the past.
And finally, ended up exploring this mysterious underground cave system in the UK with possible Templar connections, or maybe something else entirely.
So we've really taken those sources you shared and done, well, a deep dive. Pulled out these stories, the key details.
Huh.
Hopefully it gives you a good shortcut to understanding what's behind these recent headlines.
Yeah, hopefully. And as you think about all this, tiny shells on an ancient jacket, massive stone statues found by chance, an empty chamber in a royal tomb, hidden caves.
All these scattered fragments.
Exactly. Consider how piecing them together, often through painstaking work, sometimes just luck, can reveal so much about beliefs, about power, about daily life, even about the faces of people from millennia ago. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
What else is still out there?
Yeah. What else is waiting just beneath the surface undiscovered?